There's a drive way back. It might be. It could be. It is. Holy cow. Welcome to another broadcast of Bricks Behind the Ivy. Holy cow.
Hey, Cub fans! Welcome to another episode of Bricks Behind the Ivy. I am your hostess, the mostest, Jeff and Cubs Rogowskis, and if you are watching on YouTube, you have noticed immediately a few big changes. First of all, my background. I'm in a different spot in the Candid Cub Cave. You still see the Fly the Wood designs in the background, but I have set up a more permanent spot in my basement. And also, much more importantly, the great Pat Eriksen is joining me as co-host today. Pat,
oh, me.
How are you doing today?
Doing good, buddy. Doing good. Thanks for having me on. It's an honor. It's a privilege. And getting a little nervous how you're down the stretch with our beloved Cubbies. But yeah, let's get going with this.
So for people who are not making the connection in the audio or are not making the connection with the video, Pat is our wonderful Harry Carey impersonator who does the Deep Thoughts with Harry segment in some of our episodes. But today he's going to be playing co-host duties to kind of talk about what's going on as, you know, the team has been heating up and they had a really nice week, which... Pat, you know what, tradition for our interviews, our guests, but you're more than that. You're part of the BBTI family, is to kind of talk about your Cubs story and how you got into the Cubs, and just talk a little bit about the Wrigley Fire Bar and Grill, which is a sponsor of BBTI, and what kind of things you've gotten to do with that. And well, to the audience.
This is it, right? Me on, and it's an honor to be a part of the old BBTI family. Think Jeff, you've got an awesome thing going on here. I'm just honored to be a part of it. But yeah, I mean, this is a bar I had in my previous home in North Aurora, and now this is out here in Sugar Grove, Illinois, probably about, I'd say about 45 miles due to Chicago, right next to Aurora. And I've been a Cub fan here probably since the early 80s. I think the very first Cub game that I was at, which was kind of cool, is I was a Cub Scout at the time, and it was a scout outing, and it was, I believe, 82, and they announced over the PA that it was Johnny Bench's last game at Wrigley.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of cool, and then I kind of saw some things around there and just kind of fell apart. I grew up in a mixed family to where my mom grew up in Chicago, so she was the Cubs influence, but my dad... grew up in New York, so it was the Mets influence. So let's also just say that from an early I picked up on, how can I put this, colorful ballpark language, especially when my dad's going to Wrigley dressed head to toe in Mets stuff. So, yeah, so it was great. But, yeah, like I said, I've been going to Cubs games ever since. You know, I still get chills every time I walk into that ballpark. Matter of fact, this past weekend, even it wasn't even a game, but I took my daughter to go see Luke Bryan down there, and even walking up the steps just for a concert, you get the chills a little bit. So it's pretty cool. And if you guys have seen, you know, me on there or talked, you know, some features or whatever on there before, everybody knows my favorite on there is Ryan Sandberg. Rhino has been near and dear to my heart for the longest time. There's a photo that's, and I can, you know, we can either share it on here later on or whatnot, but my uncle pointed him out. He was, maybe a week as a Cub, and he had the big, you know, early 80s big hair and everything, and nobody was going up to him. And my uncle said that this guy is going to be huge someday. So, and here's little old me hanging on a fence in the old parking lot, which, you know, where Gallagher Way is now. And I got my little brown zip Velcro shoes on, and I'm just hanging there, you know, hanging on and just mesmerized. And now you fast forward now, and I remember earlier in the year walking through the ballpark, and I was with my son who's now down in Georgia. Go Dogs. But, you know, going down there, and I ran into Rhino, and he looked at me and said, "Hey, Patty, how's it going?" And I about dropped. Here's a 50-year-old man that about dropped there when my idol for my entire life, for the most part, knows me by name. So that was pretty cool. But, yeah, so this is all Memorabilia down here from, oh gosh, the 60s, 70s. I've got everything from Duke Snider from the Brooklyn Dodgers, a bunch of 69 Cubs with Billy and Ernie, all the way up to present day. And, and it's also fire because I've been doing the job now as a firefighter paramedic for the last 22 years, 18 out in DeKalb, the last 18. And so I got some firefighter stuff up here too. But, and then I hooked up with Jeff. We did a feature on the bar down here, and which was a lot of fun, and just kind of blossomed from there. And here we are.
It's so cool, and I just last week we had Matt Trueblood from the editor-in-chief at Northside Baseball, who let me run with the idea last year of the fan of the week, and I found you through that. I think it was through the Cubs Man Cave group, and
Yep.
yeah, we just kind of hit it off, and now you're a big part of what we do here, and yeah, it's super cool, like how small the Cub world is, and how great Cubs
Heck yeah.
families can be. Yeah, just,
Heck yeah.
excited what you've brought to the pod, and yeah, just like this is another new chapter of having you on as a co-host. So
Awesome. Happy to be here, buddy.
well, another thing I'm going to put in the description of the podcast, you did recently have a feature on Marquee for
Yes.
the Fire Bar and Grill. How did that come about?
So what happened was it was kind of along the same lines as you and I hooked up. Marquee they were going to start a feature on various Cubs man caves. And so I reached out and I got a hold of a couple people over at Marquee and didn't hear from them again. And I figured, hey, it's Marquee Sports Network. They're busy. They've got so many different things, so many irons in the fire. And then lo and behold, out of nowhere, Matt over at Marquee said, hey, listen, we really want, I've seen the photos, I've seen your Facebook page, everything else. We want to squeeze you in before spring training in 24. So this was probably in the winter of 23 and towards the end of the year. And so I said, yeah, absolutely. Guys are always welcome. Fast forward. And they came out here. They set up cameras. And we did a whole huge interview with them out here. We kind of walked through, took various photos, various things as far as stories, as how the bar came about, favorite memorabilia, how I acquired memorabilia, yada, yada, yada. And what was kind of cool is they literally were squeezing it in because down here in the basement, they had these special bags for all their cameras. And I turned to Matt and I'm like, oh, these are pretty nice. He's like, yeah, these are the bags that need to go on the bus. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, as soon as we're done here, they're going on the bus to Arizona. So we're literally squeezing you in at the 11th hour, but we wanted to get you on. So, yeah, so it was really awesome. They spent, a few hours out here, and it was a big honor to have them feature this out here. I mean, this is a little basement bar that, the neighborhood takes advantage of. The fire department guys, they take advantage of. My college buddies take advantage of. But just something that I created because, like you, Jeff, you've got so much cool memorabilia. What's the point of keeping it in Xerox boxes and storage areas and crates and everything? You want to put it out. If for anything, at the end of the day, it's for yourself or your family to just sit around and look and like, hey, that's cool, or hey, that's cool, and I remember this and that. And it's just blossomed from there. So yeah, so when Marquee came out, it was really cool, and it's actually still on the Marquee page, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
Yeah, I was so excited when I saw that, and you told me about that. Like, there's very few people in this world who deserve those types of honors, and you're definitely one of them. And
stop!
It was so cool, like to see you on Marquee, and yeah, no, I agree with you about like having a space. I have talked about this in other episodes. Like like other kids dreamt about, what they wanted to be when they grew up, and I dreamt about the space for my Cub stuff since I was like 7, and like what I wanted bricks, and I wanted like fake ivy draping the brick walls, and I wanted a marquee, and I wanted a scoreboard, and like all these, like all my favorite features of the ballpark had to be there. And like, yeah, I think, something that's a kind of phenomena of the pandemic is a lot of people kind of like lean back into hobbies, and people refer to these as like nostalgia rooms, and it's like when I sit down here, like I just can like do a quick spin and just get like just millions and millions of hours of dopamine. Just like
I'm looking behind you. There's a few pieces I see behind you that I'm kind of envious of, but heck yeah.
Yeah, and I was able to kind of still carve out a corner for my love of other things, like a big Star Wars guy and big Lego guy still, and
Nerd alert!
I'm a child at heart, and it's been something cool to share with my kids too, because this is a space that, the best TV in the house.
And in this day and age, we all need to be a kid at heart.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
It's,
absolutely. In this day and age, and I've got other stuff. I've Blackhawk stuff. I've got stuff from like when my kids were at Disney and all kinds of stuff. But like I said, in this day and age, with the world being so upside down, it's awesome to have a spot where you can just go and just relax and look around and just kind of take you back to the good old days. And that's basically what this does. And that's what being on this, honestly, that's what being on this podcast brings me to also. Because it's like, hey, I could sit down with you, Cubs baseball, which is the biggest thing that I love doing. And, it's awesome. It's awesome.
So how about you guys in the audience? If you're watching on YouTube, do you have a Cub fan space you want to share? Maybe this offseason we can feature some fan spaces and do some video tours since we're a video podcast. Leave your information in the comments and we're happy to come out or just do a video tour and feature on the podcast as our fan of the week this coming offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't be a Bricks Behind the Ivy episode if we didn't do the Box Score Blitz, in which we have changed up the format, in which I only get 60 seconds to recap all the important things that have happened since our last episode. So,
all right, I'm going to time you.
All right, 3, a 2, a 1. Play ball. The Chicago Cubs played the Miami Marlins and the Pittsburgh Pirates on the road, 3 games apiece. Cubs took 2 of 3 versus the Marlins, losing the Sunday game, and swept the Pittsburgh Pirates with an absolutely breathtaking final game in which they came back down 10-3 to win the game 14-10. The Cubs offense was on fire this week, being the top baseball offense this week based on a extremely high walk rate for the last 6 to 7 games, best offense in baseball in that stretch. But guess what? We still have a player of the week. Christian Bethancourt barely gets beaten out by Seiya Suzuki just because Seiya had more at-bats. He had a 293 weighted runs created plus with 3 home runs, 9 runs, and 7 RBIs. This week's pitcher of the week, Porter Hodge. He had 3 games in which he got 2 wins, 3.2 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts, really moving, only 2 walks, really big part of his bullpen, and that is the Box Score Blitz. Well, as you can tell by the Box Score Blitz, the Cubs absolutely took advantage of a lighter schedule, which is exactly what they needed to do. And as Lance Brodowski said, when there were 41 games left, the Cubs needed to reach potentially the 87 win mark to keep their chances of being in the postseason alive, and that means about a .666 winning percentage for the last 41 games, and they exceeded that this week. They only have 1 loss in their 2 series versus the Pirates and the Marlins. That Sunday game versus the Marlins, which, you can kind of throw that one out a little bit, and the offense wasn't as lively, but, the rest of the week, the Cubs offense, top in baseball in the last 6 games by a wide margin, 63 runs in 6 games. It's over 10 runs a game, 178 weighted run created plus, and a .424 on base, which, not to toot my own horn, but we did have an episode a few weeks ago, you should go check it out, of the 3 things the Cubs needed to do to make the playoffs, and one of them obviously was win, but one of the things I said they needed to do was walk, because they hadn't been walking as much as they did. This week, led baseball with a 13.3% walk percentage, and then was second in baseball in K rate at only 16%. So they're getting on base and they're slugging. So this is exactly what I think we thought they potentially could do this season, and right now they're doing it. And yes, we're at the wire, but hope is thin, but hope is all we've had for a majority of our fandom.
Well, it's like small ball, and you've heard that terminology for decades. Get on, get around, get in. And that's what the Cubbies need to be doing right now. They need to stop swinging for the fences. They need to start playing a lot of small ball, find those holes, play those shifts. If you see the guys doing shifts, I also it's almost like the beer league softball. You see the guys playing a shift, try to smack it to the opposite field. Do whatever you can, but play that small ball to get on, get around, get in. And I did remember that past episode, and I will give you kudos. But who would have thought maybe item number 4 on that list would have anything to do with Taylor Swift and the candle?
We're all
I
we're all
cannot
Swifties
believe what's
now.
going on. And who would have thought that Council was a Swiftie?
Yeah.
Nobody knew that, but
Aren't we
they're
all
they're doing
Swifties
it.
a little bit?
They're doing it. I mean, they are doing everything right now. And I'll be honest with you. The other day when they were down 10-3 in the seventh, I was driving into work and I was like, "Oh, this is over." And the next thing you know, it's holy cow! They're plating the tying and the go ahead run from Bethencourt. But these are the games that we need to do. I kind of sat there earlier today and I was kind of thinking about, all right, what do the Cubbies need to do going forward for the rest of the year? And if you look at the Braves, all right, yes, we also have to jump the Mets. But if you look at those Braves right now, they're limping into this. They're leaking oil pretty bad out of the ship. Okay. Now, granted, they may plug because they're the Atlanta Braves, and they always seem to do that. Okay. But a realistic record for them could be around 500. All right. So let's hypothetically say that. If they go right around 500, then you're looking at the Cubs are going to have to go probably 20-8.
Yep.
Now, is that far-fetched? Is that a pipe dream? It depends on what you think. But, I mean, look at yesterday. They're down 7 runs in the 7th inning. They come back to win. So anything is possible at this point. I think, and Jeff, I'd like to get your input on it too, but I think that they need to go a minimum of a 20-8 record the rest of the year. And I think with this schedule going forward, I think that could very well be feasible, depending on what these other teams are going to start doing along the way.
Yeah, the Cubs got they have the end of their easy stretch here. Going into the next episode, they have 3 in Washington, and then they come home for 3 versus the Pirates. And this Nationals team is a little better, I think, than their record. They've got some young players that are really interesting that I think is going to kind of add a little more fire. So I don't think they beat the Yankees the other night, so they're not as pushovers. I think their bullpen and their rotation isn't necessarily as strong as some of the guys that they've seen of late. But yeah, I definitely remember going into Washington last year when they were a worse team and really blowing those games, like losing 3 one-run games and like missing the playoffs by 1 game. Like, that ended up kind of mattering. And now there's
100%.
There's a weird, like, kind of inverse situation going on. I keep thinking that in my brain of like, well, last year, early in the year, we blew it versus the Nationals. We're like, now we're kind of getting like this redemption tour of like, oh, we're going to Washington again. Can we take care of business? And yeah, I'm also a big believer in like the non-stats, like momentum, feel, swag in baseball. And that win the other night in Pittsburgh, the other afternoon, is such a big momentum builder. Like, just the never
100%.
quit philosophy. And I think as frustrated at times we can be with Council and like his very, like, I would say, just like his demeanor. He doesn't overreact, he doesn't underreact. He's just kind of there, and like he pulls all the levers, and I think he's done a pretty solid job this year. But like this team has continued, regardless of the record, to just perform. Like, and yes, it hasn't been what we've wanted most of the time, but here we are. They have a shot. They know what they need to do. Yes, it's a long shot, but yeah, 20-8 the rest of the way. They do have a stretch after, and we'll focus on it next week's episode. They play the Yankees, the return of Anthony Rizzo. Respect. And then they go out west, play the Dodgers, and then they get the Rockies. Which, like, games and cores are always weird, but yeah. Yankees, Dodgers for 6. Like, that is the toughest stretch left of the season.
Yeah.
And like, I think you got to go 4-2 there. And
easily, yeah.
And I think that could be very tough. Especially, the good news is that Sunday game is a 1:20, and then they fly out west to play a 9:10 game, 9:10 Central, which maybe I'll do a watch along that week, since 9, 10 games are easier as a dad because they're post
Yeah.
bedtime. But yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
kind of
maybe
getting.
I'll join you. Why not? Hey.
There you go. Maybe we'll schedule something out. We'll do a live broadcast on YouTube. But
There
yeah,
you go.
I think the Cubs can do it. I think
Mhm.
and I know like a good portion of that is straight up delusion. But if you're not mildly delusional as a Cubs fan, I'm not sure you're really a Cubs fan because
No.
delusion
Mhm.
is all we had for a majority of my fandom and a lot more of your fandom because
Oh, 100%. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
and making the
Oh, yeah.
playoffs, yes, I'm not saying this team and if they get there, we can have a different conversation. Is like super well constructed to like dominate in the playoffs, but like just get in. Like it changes the narrative
Mhm.
going into the offseason
That's all you
significantly.
need.
Yeah, just
Yep.
change the
You just
narrative.
need a shot. Yep.
Yeah, the
And you know, you
positivity is
you
so
you just
big.
mentioned something too about you mentioned something earlier about council too, and I think that council's mentality is starting to also spill over in the ball club. I was running errands earlier today, and I was listening to the Score, Bernstein and Holmes show, and they played the clip that T Mac was playing last night when she interviewed Bethencourt post game. And you would think, 7 RBIs just came over to the team, would be ecstatic, blah, 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 blah. And he said something that really resonated with me that I also think is spilling over from the team's mentality as a whole and from council's mentality as well. Is he answered every question is we played a 27 ounce.
Yes.
He said the other team's going to play to 27 ounce. We get it, but we played a 27 ounce because T-Mac was asking, hey, at what point, even when you guys were down 10-3 in the 7th inning, at what point did you even think that you had a shot or that you guys were going to keep pushing and keep pushing? And all he kept saying over and over again is, hey, we're given 27 ounce and we play until the 27th out. And I think if they keep taking that mentality going forward, in addition to what we talked about earlier with the small ball mentality, and yeah, we have been getting the big bombs. Swanson all of a sudden is waking up. We've been getting a lot of the big hits, and that's great. But if we take that 27th out and the small ball mentality, I think, and again, maybe I'm delusional, maybe it's too much Budweiser, I don't know, but I think we've got a shot to do this.
Yeah, and Fangraphs has them
You know?
at a 3.3% chance of making the playoffs.
Least you can do is level with me. What are my chances?
Not good.
Like is reasonable because the Cubs have no tiebreakers with the teams in front of them because they lost all the series with the teams in front of them, so they
Right.
have to beat these teams outright. And yeah, it is frustrating to be in this moment and think about the large amount of blown saves and just like getting 3 or 4 of those back. Like we're having a completely different conversation at this moment.
Oh, yeah.
Their expected win loss is 71 and 63, which would have them about a game and a half out of the wild card spot. But yeah, I do want to shift gears to something else that I'm going to be focusing on in an article for Northside Baseball you can check out. But speaking of shifting gears and speaking of memorabilia from earlier, cannot have an episode without thanking our sponsor, Wrigleyville Sports. Wrigleyville Sports has been around since 1990. They are my favorite place to get Cubs memorabilia in Wrigleyville. They are adjacent to Wrigley Field, and you can get right off the red line, walk in the store, order a custom jersey, and likely have it ready for game time to wear into the ballpark. How do you like that service? And if you've been listening long enough or watching long enough on YouTube, we have a discount code. So at checkout, use code IV10 and that'll get you 10% off of your order. And thank you so much to Wrigleyville Sports for continuing to be such an awesome partner. But another transition, and this one is just as sloppy as the last one. Kyle Hendricks. Kyle Hendricks has been, if you can see in the background, you've seen the background of the episodes, I have an autographed jersey hanging here. My son is named after Kyle Hendricks. That was the deal after the Cubs won the World Series. I got to name our child, and he is named after Kyle Hendricks. He has been my favorite Cub since the moment he made the Major League team. He is such an old school pitcher. East-west, north-south pitchability is really how I would define his way to get through a lineup. He's never had elite velocity. At one point, he had one of the better changeups in the game. It's not quite there anymore. But Kyle Hendricks got hit pretty hard. He got an early lead versus Paul Skeens in the game, the comeback game, the great comeback game in Pittsburgh, starting at 11:35 Central on Wednesday this week. But he got hit pretty hard and gave up a bunch of runs. And in that situation, generally, you start to wonder, man, like, should Kyle Hendricks still be pitching in this rotation? And generally, it's tough. It's a tough call because first of all, I'm going to caveat this that I have a lot of emotional stakes in this discussion because of what I just said. I'm a huge Kyle Hendricks guy. I have been his defender early in the year when he was not that great, and he went on the IL, which people thought was a phantom IL, which could have been, and he came back and he was, solid. And, I felt very vindicated when I said I wouldn't bet against Kyle Hendricks. But I'm starting to wonder, just kind of looking at his velocity and how it compares to his career averages and how it compares to the major league average. And, I have some data that I'm going to dig into and write an article for Northside Baseball. I'll put a link in the description. It should be out tomorrow as well. Kyle Hendricks' velocity, his pitch mix, all those things have not changed. His average exit velocity, people are not hitting him hard. He's in the top 2% in Major League Baseball this year. He was in the top 2% last year. The issue is, I don't know if his pitches look competitive to Major League hitters because they look so much slower than what they're used to seeing.
Yep, and I think so.
And it's not, there's not data. I don't think that's necessarily supports that. But is there a trend in his decline in ERA and the rising average fastball in Major League Baseball? Because you got Paul Skeens on the other side of the house throwing 99 to 102 in game as a starter, like that can get that way to the 6th or 7th. And we've got, Kyle Hendricks up there. He at one point capped out probably at 91 in his career, but yeah, everything that is getting hit, he's getting hit more. There's more balls in play, and the exit velocity out of him, like he manages contact. It's just they're dropping in everywhere. And then when he does make a mistake, when he loses his command, which seems to happen a little bit more than he used to, like he doesn't have anything that's necessarily tricking anyone with velocity. He cannot leave a pitch over the plate. It's just not something he can do. If you were Craig Counsell, Pat, what would you do with Kyle Hendricks?
Well, and kind of piggybacking on what you just said too, this kind of almost reminds me of towards the tail end of another professor the Cubs used to have, good old 31, Greg Maddux. And Mad Dog got a little lit up, maybe not necessarily as bad as Hendricks did or is doing right now. But he was starting to get towards the end of it. And I think, in my personal opinion, I think that he used to be able to, he never really had the velocity, but he was accurate as far as painting corners, as far as making the movement and everything else like that. And I think that movement is starting to go away. So if I had to put on the old Craig Counsell hat right now, I mean, first of all, you have to look at the pitching rotation overall. Now, granted, 1, 2, 3, we're good. Okay, we're solid on that. When you got Steele, Tyon, and Imanaga, you're golden there. Your 4 or 5, obviously, we're going to have to kind of keep messing around. I mean, I even looked at the box scores for the next game for the Cubs, and it's still to be determined in Washington. So who knows? But that being said, I think you just need to, for this year, August, right now, August 29th, 4:30 p.m., you need to start looking ahead as far as what is going forward as far as your 4th and 5th starters. What do you have available? Now, if the Cubs had the luxury of having a good solid 4 and maybe a decent, maybe not necessarily a solid, but a decent 5th starter, then yeah, I would put him probably into the bullpen. I do think that he is still a very viable pitcher. I don't think he's got the stuff to be a starter anymore. And I hate to say it because I'm like you. Kyle is probably one of the nicest guys I have ever met, as far as with the Cubs organization. But the problem is that it's every athlete, and I don't care what sport it is, towards the end, it's very difficult for that person to kind of realize when it's time. And I think he's kind of going through that right now. And I would kind of start to see, all right, what are your fourth starters? What are your fifth starters? If you do need to put him into those spots because you don't necessarily have a volatile fourth or a volatile fifth, or, you need a good start coming up because of that stretch of the 20-8 that we're talking about or whatever, and you don't really have a good starter at that point, then maybe you do throw him out there again. But you also have to putting my counsel hat on, from this point forward, you also got to remember, if you're marching out Hendricks for a possible start, you better damn well make sure that your bullpen's ready to go, because at that point, you may only get 3 or 4 innings out of the guy. So you better make sure that he's not going out there on a day where the night before you absolutely exhausted your bullpen and you don't have anybody in there. That's what you need to really make sure, that he's got the back end covered if he is going to start. But it's a very touchy subject, and I hate to say it. I mean, this might be the final hurrah for him. Now, will he get a job as far as a pitching coach? I would be remiss to say that it would be silly if he didn't, because the knowledge that this guy has is unbelievable. But I think that as far as pitching is concerned, it's just going to have to be pick and choose when he's going from this point forward.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Cubs' health situation, pitching-wise, doesn't lead to the calls like from Arizona Phil to release him, and his contract expires this year. I am interested in like what his decision will be, and if he's going to hang it up, if he realizes this is it. I don't know if I could stomach him wearing another uniform, but I also am not sure like he is a viable pitcher or starting pitcher in Major League Baseball. And at this moment, he is important depth as the Cubs try to kind of, piece this thing together. And they're not in an immediate playoff position, so there is no reason to cut him at this point. So, yeah, I just don't see the value in getting rid of Kyle Hendricks, but I do see a likelihood of like a way quicker trigger. Maybe he's an opener. Maybe somebody's an opener and Hendricks comes in after. Maybe like we see like a Nate Pearson come to start a game, and then they bring in Kyle Hendricks. Maybe he's a little more effective after seeing some high velocity instead of having the big difference of going from elite fastball down to east-west soft stuff and get like 2-3 innings out of him. Like, maybe that's what it is. But yeah, the Cubs, Jordan Wicks has had some rehab starts. We'll see. It'll be interesting if maybe he's the one that's activated and is part of the rotation plan for the Nationals this weekend. Hayden Wisniewski still hurt. Obviously, Ben Brown still hurt. There's not many options. Maybe the Cubs give a shot, if there's an absolute need, to Caleb Killian. He's been, stretched out and starting down in Iowa. And has, had mixed results in the major leagues, but, the stuff plays, and, the Cubs are running out of time with him. I believe he has to, he's Rule 5 eligible after this season, so he needs to be added to the roster if he's going to be retained. And if you don't know if he's a starter or a reliever, you kind of need to figure out what he is. You don't want to kind of let him go and have him blossom somewhere else. Right. But yeah, I think the Cubs have some options. One of those options is not to get rid of Kyle Hendricks, and yeah, the guy deserves, if this is it, to me, he deserves like the David Ross treatment, the treatment of like he's the last member of the 2016 team. He's done so much for this organization. He has just been like more than anyone ever thought he would be in a return for Ryan Dempster. He was the afterthought in that trade. And, I remember when that trade went down, looking this guy up and reading about his changeup. And I got into higher end baseball analytics because of how Kyle Hendricks talked about tunneling. That became my new favorite thing, was pitch tunneling, because Kyle Hendricks put it on my radar. And it's, such a cool dude. Seems like he's like a really nice, like level-headed guy, and just a cerebral, actual pitcher in an era of like throw it as hard as you can. So it's
you don't see a lot of that kind of pitchers anymore.
I'm not ready for it to be over.
I don't blame you.
But that's a perfect transition to that's all we have for this week on Bricks Behind the Ivy. If you did not notice, I'm going to back up a little bit. What? I'm wearing a Bricks Behind the Ivy t-shirt. Pat is wearing a Bricks Behind the Ivy zip. We have Bricks Behind the Ivy merch on Etsy. So go check out our Etsy store. If you are a true brickhead, you will rep the pod. So buy some stuff today. There's t-shirts, coffee mugs, zips, sweatshirts, backpacks.
Holidays are coming. Let's go.
Exactly.
They make great stocking stuffers. Let's go.
It's almost Grandparents' Day. Grandma and Grandpa.
Come on. Trick or treat. Throw in a shirt.
Yeah, there you go. So check it out today. If you have not subscribed to the podcast on YouTube, please do. We are at 75 subscribers and inching closer to that 100 subscriber mark, which would be such a huge day for Bricks Behind the Ivy. If you are listening to this on the audio podcast, make sure you are subscribing there. You are reviewing the podcast there to help our reach. And thank you so much for listening, and continue to share Bricks Behind the Ivy with all of your friends. And until next week, we will see you guys later, and let's hope the Cubbies stay hot and make this thing super interesting down the stretch. Go Cubs.
Let's go! Woohoo!
We are so excited to announce a brand new partnership with Bricks Behind the Ivy, Yagi Road Roasting Company. This is started by 3 college friends at my amazing alma mater, Valparaiso University. Yagi Road Roasting Company is a specialty boutique coffee roaster centered on ethically sourcing and meticulously roasting some of the most special coffees in the world. A lot of life's most special moments happen over coffee, which is why Yagi Road ensures that the coffee in your mug is as special as the moment you're experiencing. Look for Yagi Road on the web at yagiroad.com to order some freshly roasted coffee today. And guess what? There is a link in the description of this podcast to order some of that amazing coffee. I had some the other week when I was in Valpo, meeting up with my friends over at Yagi Road, and it was so good. Thank you so much, Yagi Road Roasting Company, for becoming part of the Bricks Behind the Ivy family.